Hello beautiful and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to this video that is something that I like to do in the beginning of my vlogmas or in the beginning of like Christmas month, and that is going back to the holiday releases of the year before. This case it's going to be 2021, and we're just going to be like, do we even remember these? Do we remember any of these products? Do we have them in our collection? Do we have any kind of FOMO? And I don't do this to rain on anyone's parade or to let you know that any of these purchases were like horrible. This is just a reminder to us that something that is really hyped today, such as the holiday makeup of 2022, will be long forgotten and not very interesting in just 1 year's time. So don't stress about not being able to buy all the things that are like coming for holiday season. Just give it a couple of months. You're not even going to remember you wanted this in the first place. And if you haven't been here before, hello, my name is Angie. I am such a lover of beauty makeup. I love everything beauty makeup related, especially things that are a little bit more on the colorful side, like this look right here. And if you want to see more makeup content on your timeline, don't forget to subscribe, because right now I am uploading every day until Christmas. Like I said, this is not the first year that I'm doing something like this. I just like to talk about stuff that used to be super hyped, or stuff that used to be like taking up the entire conversation in the beauty community, and just seeing if we even remember them. Like, where are they now? Do we remember any of these? Because I have to say, when I saw some of the things that were holiday releases of 2021, I went, oh yeah! Let me scoochy a little bit to the side so we can put up just a little picture here on the side. I did film this look. It's already live on my channel. I will link... let me put it like this. If there's any of these palettes that are still available, or any of these collections or things that are still available, I will link that down in the description box, together with where you can find this makeup look and the things that I have on my face right now, in case you're interested. Like I said, this tutorial is already live on my channel. I'm gonna start with the makeup releases that I didn't buy. And then we'll end with the holiday releases from last year that I actually bought, how I feel about them now, and which ones survived my declutter. Let's start with Charlotte Tilbury, because she released, per usual, one of these bigger palettes last year, and this year she didn't. This year she released some small singles instead, and some face palettes, and I think some people were a little bit disappointed in that. This isn't my favorite holiday release. These, like, I think are Eyes to Mesmerize? No, that's something else, right? Now this is... I don't own a single eyeshadow from Charlotte Tilbury, not a single eyeshadow. I love a lot of the things that she has for her complexion. I like her lip products a lot, some I really love, but eyeshadow has never really drew me in, and I feel like this palette to me is a little bit boring. I don't really go for super natural looks, and even though this one did have some pops of green and yellow, I did see this one in real life, and for me, this wasn't exciting or different enough. I feel like this was a watered down version of palettes that I already owned and actually loved. So why would I buy a watered down version of that? So I think that actually Charlotte Tilbury, this palette, I think a lot of people missed it this year. Let me know if you are one of those people that was a little bit sad that you weren't able to see a palette like this from Charlotte Tilbury. I'm gonna be interested in seeing what she does for next year. But yeah, I feel like this one is one of those palettes, if you buy it, it's probably remained in your collection. Let's talk about the Juvia's Place Christmas collection, or like holiday collection, because I actually didn't buy this one. I do really like Juvia's Place, but I don't pick up everything nowadays as I used to do. And this was like a more colorful version of a Christmas. I remember the year before then, they had those 6 pans that was like orange yellow and then like a purple one, right? And now they did this like mint red and then this like frosty blue. I am, if I'm not totally mistaken, I think one of these or both of these were having a pressed glitter, which is not my favorite thing to have in an eyeshadow, and that also steered me away a little bit. And I will say, I do think that these looked really nice, but I'm kind of hoping to see something else from Juvia's Place next year. I hope that they take some time to figure out something that fits their brand and their holiday, like, and a holiday spirit, a holiday, like, it doesn't have to be Christmas, but like something that's a little bit more festive, that's a little bit more thought through, that's a little bit more, I don't want to say collectible, but like something that just brings that extra pizzazz so that people can like talk about it and keep it and covet it and hype about it for longer than however long people remember these palettes, because I don't hear a single soul talk about these. This year though, they did release that coffee collection, and if that is good quality, I can totally see people talking about that one for years and years, because nothing makes the masses happy as a really good neutral palette. So I think they made a smart move with this one. Because also, if we look at the Huda Beauty released her quartz palette. I think it's quartz? Rose quartz. Yeah, that's the one, right? Rose quartz palette last year. And I think that Huda Beauty is one of the brands that usually does holiday releases really good, because she will usually release one of her big palettes for the holiday season. She did it this year as well, but I don't think this year's palette will be as hyped as the last couple of years have been. And it is the good Huda Beauty quality. Apparently, I've never tried one of the big palettes, but people seem to have a consensus around that these are the good palettes, and they are never holiday themed. They just have some kind of a theming that works all year around, but she releases them around Christmas, and usually these palettes are hyped for years to come. People still say that this Rose Quartz palette is their favorite Huda Beauty palette. I will say though that this year's palette, my doggy is here, and she's been spayed, so she has this little cone on her. And you're so sweet, baby. You're so sweet. Very, very sweet. I think she is not gonna have as big of a hit on the long run with this one, because it is very mid-tone, very brown, and there are no unexpected elements really in that palette, so I don't think it has gone over as good. Baby. As her other palettes have. I'm sorry I can't show her right now because she's literally in this little cone. You can hear. That's the cone. Yes, you're very sweet. But yeah, I think that overall Huda Beauty usually does really good holiday releases because she doesn't make them super holiday themed. And I will mention that as well with Natasha Denona towards the end of the video, because I did pick those things up and she does a usual thing. Can we talk about Hourglass? They always release the face palettes for Christmas. And every year, and this is just me talking about influencers, every year influencers buy these face palettes. They must have like 10 at this point, 10 each. I remember having one and I got rid of it because I never reached for it. But I never hear anyone talk about these face palettes throughout the year. Are people using them? Are you loving them? Because like it's basically smaller variations on the same theme being released year after year after year after year. They're always releasing a face palette. This year they released 3. I think this year's release probably was the best one. But at one point, are we like done? Are we like tapped out on face palettes? Because like, do you buy a face palette and use it up throughout the year and buy a new one? Like, I'm a little bit confused about these face palettes because I just don't think they're that interesting. But that could be from the perspective of someone who reviews makeup for a living. Because of course, like I see these face palettes, these same face palettes every year. And there are a few makeup products that I like go through and repurchase, like under eye powders, brow products, stuff like that. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts about this, because I feel like nothing is as predictable than the holiday releases of Hourglass. It is literally just the same thing again and again and again, and it has been since I joined the makeup community, which is what, seven years more now. I don't know, it's just a little bit boring. Something that I also thought was a little bit boring, although I understand where he was coming from, was the Lunar Beauty holiday release from last year, and this is the face palette. I think the packaging of this one is genius, but I don't think a lot of people that are not makeup artists need a palette like this. With that being said, I think the formulas in this palette is amazing, and I really hope that Manny in the future, because this is Manny MUA's brand, will have the opportunity and the funds to make these into trios or duos, because the formula is so nice. And if he's able to use these formulas in other smaller things, I really think that he could have a hit on its hands, because the product is wonderful. I've used it several times. And listen, if I were to do makeup on someone else at this point in time, this is what I would bring. Because this is a good product with several different shades where I can mix and match with white and the almost black shade to get pretty much a good contour shade for everyone. But to be able to do that, you kind of have to be a makeup artist, or at least have worked as a makeup artist to know a little bit how to use a product like this. So I think in theory this was a really cool product, but I understand if some people thought that it was a little bit boring to have as a holiday release. The MAC collection from last year, I remember when people... Okay, let me rephrase. I feel like the last MAC collection for holidays that people were truly excited about was that Nutcracker collection. And I actually owned a couple of things from that collection, and let me tell you, the packaging, the imprints, the colors were beautiful. This wasn't, it's not as good as that. And I kind of wish that they would just, these round packagings with the round pants, and I don't know, it's just not as exciting as it used to be. And sometimes I think with MAC, like, was it that there were less things to choose from? And I think part of it is that it was less things to choose from. But when it comes to that Nutcracker collection, those products were actually genuinely pretty, and they sold out and people were excited about them. Like, they sold out, even in Sweden, the country where I lived at the point, they sold out and people were really excited about these products. And I'm wondering if they're selling as good now as they were back then when people were a little bit more excited about their products, even on social media. Because if they're still selling as good, do you know, for example, if the holiday collections are selling out? Because if they're still selling out, then maybe they don't care if the products are as exciting or as good packaging as they used to be a couple of years ago. Because, I mean... we're living in a capitalistic world, money talks. If they're still selling out, who cares? But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts about this, because I thought that this was a very non-memorable collection, and I haven't heard a single soul breathe about this collection since, well, December last year. Can we also quickly talk about this one? This is the collection that was supposed to be released last year for Kylie Cosmetics, but it actually got released this year, which is funny, because I've seen this in store. I saw this at Macy's, and let me tell you, everything was sold out. There was like 1 or 2 things left of something in this whole, like, there was this big stand in the middle of Macy's. So people seem excited, like people are buying Kylie Cosmetics because everything was super swatched and almost all of it was sold out. And it got me thinking, like, maybe people are still interested in this brand. But I do think it's really funny that this is the palette that she announced to be the holiday release of last year. But yeah, she released this collection this year. But at least in Austin, it's selling out. Let me know if you've seen it. Let me know if you think it's like a popular collection. I think that people are still excited about Kylie Cosmetics and buying it. I just don't think it's as popular on social media anymore, which, as we all know, are 2 different worlds. There were 2 collections that we could find that was like marketed as being holiday collections from Colourpop, and I didn't remember one of them. Can we talk about this collection here? I don't 100% know what it's called. One of the palettes that was called Ticket to Dreamland and On a Whimsy. I don't remember these. That's the whole thing though with Colourpop, because I remember when I was going through my pictures, because I was filming this, like, you know, roundup of the releases of this year. I found their spring collection, the one with daisies. I was like, what? You keep forgetting. It's too many releases. You keep forgetting. But yeah, Colourpop had this kind of a holiday collection, and I will be honest, I don't remember. Maybe this was for Ulta? Was this for Ulta? I don't even remember. I don't even remember. But I don't think that that was the memorable collection. Quite obviously not the memorable collection from Colourpop. I think the more memorable collection from Colourpop was the one that was with Rudolph. I've never seen this cartoon. I haven't celebrated Christmas in the US. This cartoon is not, or I think it's like a claymation, I think that's correct. I've never seen it. It's not playing in Sweden, at least. Let me know if you're living in a country outside of the US and this like Rudolph claymation thing is popular in your country. I would love to hear about it down in the comments. But in Sweden, very much no. But yeah, I thought that it was really cool that they were doing this collab, because a lot of people were like, oh my god, I'm so excited. I love this for Christmas. It's such nice nostalgia. Do you think the same now? If you bought this collection, are you bringing it out for this Christmas season to wear it again? I got this in PR, but I got it just as I was moving to the US, and I actually gave it away to a neighbor, I think? or maybe I still, I don't know, but I never used it because I was like, it's after Christmas. There's no meaning for me to dig into it when I could just give it to someone else. And I'm fairly sure I gave it to someone, or at least they were looking at it and they were like, oh, I love this cartoon, like all that like stuff. But I think that nostalgia works wonders if you know about the nostalgia. This year they're doing the Muppets Christmas thing, and I think a lot of people are super, super happy about that. Nostalgia, I saw a lot of people being excited about that. Again, I've never seen the Muppets Christmas special, but you keep telling me that I can see it on Disney Plus, so maybe that's what I'll do today. Maybe I'll take Doggle down and we can watch the Christmas Muppet. You keep telling me that it's two different ones. One that is the Christmas Carol and one that's the Christmas special. You know what? I will hunt this down and I will see. I think it's really smart of them to do something that's like associated with Christmas and that is like something that's very associated with Christmas and make that a Christmas release. The problem with that though is that if it's not associated with Christmas in your country, which like in Sweden this was very much not associated with Christmas, but we're not the main market, the US is, it just becomes another collab around Christmas that we don't really understand the meaning of. I did remember this Rudolph collection because I got it myself. I haven't used it, but for me it doesn't really, you know, pull on that heartstring because I've never even seen it, but maybe I'll see it this year. Maybe this year will be the year when I actually watch this. Another thing that was released last year, and I find this very, very funny because they keep going on and on about this, and this is the Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl. What did they use this year? It was like pumpkin pie or something. They had success with this one time, I think 3-4 years ago, and now they keep coming out with a eerily similar palette once a year. It's this one, the cinnamon swirl, the pumpkin pie, this, what was it, pumpkin spice, gingerbread extra spice, that's the one. I don't even remember, but they keep milking this and it's like, we understand that you're doing cookies, like we get it. Is there any other Christmas treat you could pick that's not brown? I understand you're Too Faced and you need to keep it brown, and cookies is perfect for you, and chocolate because it's brown, I get it. But like maybe you could like, I don't know, at least like peppermint mocha or something, or like the peppermint bark, and just do it at least like red, white and brown. Like can we get something? Because all of these palettes are starting to look very, very similar. And I feel like a lot of people are just buying them on repeat, on like automation at this point, because it's like, oh, but I like the first one so much. And you end up having 5 palettes that are quite similar. Quite similar. I'm honestly intrigued to see what they're gonna do next year, because I think that they have milked this to the absolute end of the line. But knowing Too Faced, they're probably going to bring out something more. Let's talk about some things that I bought that I actually don't have. First one being the Urban Decay Cyberpunk. I don't know if the palette itself was part of the holiday release. This was, according to me, a very mediocre attempt to doing a duochrome palette. The duochromes were very weak. I like the mattes though, but how am I going to put this? There are so many brands that have very interesting duochrome formulas, even at Sephora and Ulta. And for Urban Decay to release this kind of mediocre attempt to duochromes, it just was a little meh. Because the palette wasn't affordable. This is Urban Decay prices. And then for the actual holiday season, they released some gift bundles with the same kind of packaging in this palette. They did the same thing this year with that other palette that looked kind of boring. What was that? So there was a naked palette this year, right? I'm not the big, I'm rooting for Urban Decay. I really am. I want you to do good. But I really wish that someone would just tell them the truth at those board meetings. Urban Decay, you are falling behind. Your formulas are very 1992 at best. You kind of need to pick it up a bit. All your things go on sale within a couple of weeks of release. And it is so obvious right now that not even consumers want to buy your stuff at full price because they know that they're going to be on sale in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna need you to step it up. Another thing that I had that I actually also decluttered is the BH Cosmetics Miss Klaus palette. And I decluttered this in my yearly declutter this year. I don't know if that one is live as you're seeing this. I think it's coming real soon. But the only reason why I decluttered this is because I kept this because I was hoping that BH Cosmetics was going to release something this year so that I can compare it to. But there's been a little bit of turmoil around BH Cosmetics, so I don't blame them for not releasing anything for either Halloween or Christmas this year. I'm hoping for new fun stuff in the future. We're like, you know, crossing our fingers and hoping for the best, right? But this was really good quality. I do think though that it is very Christmas themed and it is a very large palette, and even though it is incredibly good formula, I do think that it's easier to sell people on something that it's not extremely Christmas themed, because you don't. Because here's the thing, if you have something that is very, very Christmas themed and you end up having it after Christmas, like you don't sell out of all of it after Christmas, you have to put it on sale. You have to put it on sale because nobody's going to pay full price for anything Christmas themed after Christmas. Just look at all the Christmas decorations that go on sale literally 10 minutes after people open their Christmas presents. So for that reason, I think that for their sake, it would probably be better to put out something that has a festive feeling without being incredibly holiday themed. Another thing that I bought that I also got rid of, and this has a very good reason as to why I got rid of this one, and this is the Beauty Bay Opulence palette. So this was the holiday palette that they released last year, and I really like this one. And the only reason why I got rid of this one is because they came out with that midnight palette this year. I bought the 16 pan version, and it has pretty much this exact color story, but instead of having blues and berries and neutrals, it has blues and berries and purples and no neutrals. So obviously for me, that is a better option. So I decluttered this one so that I can give it away to a friend or give it away to a neighbor, because I don't need two so similar palettes. And I think that that's also something to keep in mind when you're looking at Beauty Bay's palettes, is that they have so many palettes in so many color schemes in their permanent range that it's gonna be really hard for them to come out with limited edition palettes that does not repeat color stories that they already have. Oh, this one I have as well. Okay, I'm sitting too comfy. I'm not gonna go and pick it up, but I still have this in my collection. This is the Sigma and Cinderella collection, and I think that this was one of the smartest holiday releases of last year. Again, they're doing something very festive. They're doing something really fun, a little bit on like the festive season with like dressing up, going to a ball, Disney theme, people love that, without being too on the nose with the Christmas theme, so that they can keep selling it after Christmas has been here. And I think the consensus around this collection is that people really loved it. I like this palette. It's still in my collection. I think this is a really cute palette, and this year they came out with the Sigma and Alice in Wonderland palette that I personally like even more myself. So yeah, I thought that this was a really fun idea, and I am intrigued to see what's coming in the future, if Sigma is going to do even more like princesses, Disney princesses, because I feel like they're having a bit of a more grown-up take on the Disney theming. Okay, let's talk about some of the palettes that I have from last holiday season still in my collection. First one being the Nomad Home for the Holidays palette. And this is a very Christmas themed palette. I did keep this after this year's declutter. I have just made a ranking on my Nomads palette. This is a beautiful all shimmer palette, and this was limited edition and no longer available because it is very Christmas themed. It has the flakes on here, and it's called Home for the Holidays. It even says limited edition on the back. I can see myself getting rid of this palette in the future because there's going to be more palettes coming, and this is no longer available. And I think it's smart of them to make a smaller and a little bit more affordable palette for the holiday season, because of the reason that they need to get rid of it before the season is over, because they cannot be sitting on holiday themed palettes in January. It's really hard to get rid of those. Another thing that was released, and I don't know if this was necessarily a holiday release, but I am gonna count this as a holiday release because this one was released on Boxing Day, which is December the 26th. So I'm just gonna put this here because I do think that it is a little bit of a holiday release, even though this one actually came out on the 26th of December. And this is the Pat McGrath and the Bridgeton collection. Pat McGrath also had another holiday palette, and we're gonna put that up here. I did not buy that palette, but I did buy the palette from this year, and I will say, and This is just based on me and my personal preference. I think that the holiday palettes from Pat McGrath, they're fairly expensive. You're getting a lot of shades in there, but she's not putting her most interesting formulas in there. So you end up paying a lot of money for a traditional shimmer and traditional metallic formula. And in this one, you're actually getting a matte and two like baked gelée satin formulas that are really beautiful in the crease, a metallic, and one of those special shades that has that like almost sparkly glittery shimmer. So I honestly think that this was better. And I mean, this is the one that I bought. Is it super, super exciting? Maybe not really, but it is very Pat McGrath. And I do think that this is a beautiful palette. I don't know how people felt about this big palette. I think it sold good because she did come out with this one this year as well. Sorry if you hear the, again, my dog with the cone in the background. But I mean, she did come out with one this year as well, so they must be selling really good. I just personally kind of wish that she would do something a little bit different because I don't feel like those big palettes really represent 100% what the brand can do. Let's talk about Melt Cosmetics. I think that this holiday release from Melt Cosmetics is probably the first holiday release from Melt Cosmetics that didn't go over amazingly. And this is the, I think it's called Amor y Mariposas, like Love and Butterflies, right? I actually got this one in PR, and I've never gotten anything in PR from Melt before that, and I've never gotten anything in PR from Melt after that. I think the only reason why I got this in PR and why other people around me also got this in PR is because Melt probably did not get the hype around this palette as they were hoping to get. So they were sending it out to a lot of people, hoping probably that we would hype it up a bit more. I will say, this is a really beautiful palette. It's really beautiful. There are a couple of shades in here that are very similar, and it probably could have been edited down a little bit. I also think that this is a fairly expensive palette, and Melt is an expensive brand. I understand that they wanted to have the details with the butterflies, but since this is such a big palette and there's so much space in between the shadows with these smaller pans, it just looks like you're getting teensy, a little bit of shadows. It just makes it look small and puny and like you're not getting any value for your money. And I think it would have been better for them had they just squished this together a little bit more, so that it didn't look as deserted. I do like the quality of these though. I think that these perform just like Melt shadows usually do. Apparently they did some kind of a change in the actual formula with the ingredients, but I will say I didn't notice a difference in how they perform, and sometimes two shadows can have totally different ingredients but still perform the same way. It just depends on what kind of pigments are being used, because sometimes you have to contour with different ingredients to make them work the same. I'm just saying that I thought that these worked like Melt shadows usually work. I thought these were good quality, but they didn't get the hype that a Melt holiday release usually does. And I will say that I think the holiday release of this year did even worse. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do for a holiday release next year, because I don't think these past two holidays have really worked out the way that they wanted them to. The two last ones that I'm going to talk about before I go out with my doggo are the two from Natasha Denona. Natasha Denona released these glam face palettes, which I think are probably a huge success with the consumers and maybe not as huge success with like YouTubers, because I don't see a lot of people like reaching back to these for videos. And then she released the mini Metropolis, which I also bought, and I think that this is a really good one. Neither of these became as hyped as the Metropolis, but I will say that the Retro palette actually released somewhat for the holiday season last year as well, and that one is really popular, and I think that is probably a palette that a lot of people are saying is the best palette from Natasha Denona. This year she had a couple of releases. Again, I don't know if any of the releases that Natasha Denona did for this year, or even the year that's up now, 2022, are as like iconic as the Metropolis was. And I don't know. Maybe they're selling as good. I would love to hear your thoughts about this. I would love to hear your thoughts about all of this. Which is the makeup like holiday release from last year that you think withstood the test of time? I would say a couple of these things. Probably the one that people are having a consensus around, which the best one was the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz. I don't think that people will feel the same about this year's Huda Beauty palette if I'm just taking a stab in the dark, because I don't feel like that one is as well loved as the Rose Quartz. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. And again, this is just a reminder that something that feels super fun, super fresh, and something that you feel like you need to have. Just give it a couple of months and you will have forgotten all about it. I hope you're having a really good day. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you again tomorrow for a new video. Bye!